you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone. Today is actually a little bit of fun. This is us showing you some actual content. Now, the idea about this particular video is because we did test the cheesy Sorc, which was supposed to be a bit of a joke, but whatever. And we are using, obviously, the Thrassian Stranglers set. Now, that was showing you on a dummy. I showed you how to basically cheese it by killing 20 dummies first and getting the stacks. Just saying, other people are going to do that. And we got a gauge for how stupid the damage could actually go up to. But there is a big, big negative effect. You will actually take 40% extra damage. And in this video, we are a stage 3 vampire taking advantage of Frenzy, which takes health off of us every single second and gives us spell damage. So instead of just going up against a dummy, we decided to go into content. So we've got 3 of these easy Sorc variations, known as the cheesy Sorc, alongside a tank. We're stage 3 vampires, so we take loads of damage from fire. We're in City of Ash 2. And we take 40% extra damage so long as we can get these stacks topped up. Now, the set itself, if you get the kill, you get 1 stack of Thrassian Strangler. If somebody else gets it, they get it. So you have to make sure you obviously get kills. It's quite fun to fight up against stacks and start competing against who's got the most and all that good stuff. Now, we're speeding this up a little bit because this is all the boring stuff. We're going to go actually into the Oblivion Gate over there and see some more dangerous enemies. But this is the first boss. We basically just go through it and kill it. The main thing to remember is that, 1, we had to obviously pay attention to more mechanics, which we tend to do anyway. 2, we had to get kills to stack them up. And 3, we had to decide when to toggle on or off our Vampire Drain ability, which gives us spell damage in return for health lost. So you have to be very, very careful with that. What we did find later on is that it was much more beneficial to use the other morph, where you actually heal after you deactivate it based on the health you've drained over time, especially in long fights, because if you're being healed by your own abilities all the time and you're keeping above it, you can keep that consistency up for a very long time, and it does end up being a quite nice heal at the end. But anyway, we're still early stages testing and stuff in here. It actually worked out quite well. And another thing to remember, of course, we're stage 3 vampire, which means our abilities are much, much more expensive if they're not vampire abilities, but our vampire abilities are obviously cheaper, which means we don't get so much of a drain. Also, that did allow us to benefit from the Undeath passive, which didn't completely counter, but helped towards the incoming damage effect of the Thrassian Stranglers. So we have 40% reduction to our survival, basically. We take 40% more damage, but then Undeath gives us up to 30% reduction as well. It's not exactly 30 minus 40, but you do end up stacking the effects, which is quite nice. We found that we weren't really struggling with survival. Obviously, if you've used the easy Sorc before, you know full well that you can basically just wall of elements and heavy attack, but there's other stuff involved. And if you can maintain your survival by toggling on and off your ability as and when you need to use it, you can keep your wall of elements up and then take advantage of heavy attacks during off balance. We didn't really struggle too much with sustain. It was actually really, really nice. So our sacrifice to gain balance ratio was actually quite decent. And we did find that when we do stack stuff up, as long as we don't die and lose our stacks, once we start going up against a boss and going full rotation, it's really messy. So we can do a stupid amount of damage. But again, this is actually for the more advanced player. Because although this particular build itself, if you've been familiar with the easy Sorc, you know is easy for a reason, you do have to be aware of your buffs. You have to keep your resistance buff up, you have to keep up your crit surge, and you do have to maintain or keep off your vampire frenzy ability, because if you keep it on for too long, you're going to lose too much health and you're going to die, especially if you're not doing any damage. So this is a learn to play scenario where this is a more extreme situation where you're using something that you're very familiar with and you can add that extra mechanic to it. Now, we are actually getting hit in here. We are taking damage alongside of our drain ability from frenzy, but the tank is keeping up damage shields, which helps us. We do have damage shields, which helps us. So I do think that it's not that bad survival-wise if you are an experienced player. The other morph, again, of Frenzy, the one that heals you after you deactivate it, that one is actually better. We did test that in other dungeons as well. But we found that if you were capable, survival wasn't so much of a problem. So I think, feedback-wise, if we're going to go risked for reward, I think Thrassian probably doesn't give you enough of a damage increase to incoming damage. I think it should probably be a bit stronger. Now, whether that's done via healing received, healing done, damage shields, resistance drops, whichever, any way whichsoever that they could possibly do that, I think they do need to adjust it slightly. I don't think 40% is enough, because there are so many ways to still further mitigate that to make it almost irrelevant. We are standing in ads here. We're getting hit. Watch, I get hit by this big AoE here. Knock me down. Half health, still fine. I'm not damaging anything right now, so I can't heal off of it, but just turn the vampire ability off, we're good to go. It's not that difficult in comparison to what we already have on live. The thing about the vampire ability, though, if you can coordinate with your group and everybody turns them off at the same time, you could take advantage of a healer in a room just with healing springs on the ground, and you just turn it off, take your heals, turn it back on again. There are things that you can do. Now, we tried this in a few different dungeons, this one being the most important, of course, because it's full of fire. But the next boss is going to give you a bit of an extreme example of how far you can really go with this. We've got 20 stacks of Thrassian Strangler. We've got the vampire ability running. We do go up to about 11 to 12k spell damage each individually per person. And this boss is about to get absolutely annihilated. He does drop a damage shield at the end, so it slows it down a bit. But basically, this is what you're looking at in content. So we are inside mechanics here. We do get hit and all that good stuff. And as you can see there, I mean, it's not far short of about 11 seconds for the kill. The death royalty is still running as he hits pretty much dead. There he goes. Bye-bye. That's pretty stupid. Just remember, turn your vampire ability off. Now, we are going to go through the whole dungeon. Of course, you are going to see all of the bosses. So we'll speed up some of the ad pulls a little bit to make it a bit more interesting. One of the major pulls up towards the next boss actually has a lot of fire. There's flame atronachs, there's loads of Zivkin dudes, and a few Dramora. It's quite nasty, so we do actually slow it down a bit when we get to there. But it's really not that bad. The survival's pretty good. None of us actually died here, so we keep our stacks all the time. And that's your risk for reward. If you do die, you lose your stacks. You've got to go and kill 20 other enemies, and then you lose your burst on the boss. If you don't die, you've got the burst, well, the consistency, in fact, to do that amount of damage. You might want to make sure that you turn it on or off on certain bosses. So maybe you kill loads of ads on the run up to one boss, but maybe the other boss is too difficult to take in that amount of extra damage, so you just crouch to turn it off and you fight them normally. With the vampire ability alone, that's still a hell of a lot of damage, so it's not a bad thing. This is the pull I was referring to. On live, there are groups that wipe here every day. Because of the amount of AoE going on, sometimes people don't pick up the two-hander on time and it nukes the group. You get stuck in AoE like I did here. It's still absolutely fine. I'm taking 40% more damage and I'm still able to mitigate with a damage shield. I can still block. I can still take not that much damage in a full health bar if I don't have a damage shield on, and I can still out-heal the damage with crit surge. So it's really not that bad. Now, as you can see, Christina's health is quite low now. If we had the other morph for the vampire ability, that would fill her health bar by now. We took a 61k heal in one of our groups earlier by just activating it because we weren't using it at the time, and we'd stacked up so much health loss already. This is absolutely ridiculous. Check this guy out. We know, obviously, 65% and 35%, he only takes 10% extra damage, or 10% of the damage, so that drops a bit, but that phase was really fast. Then we can't do much here when the Atronach comes up. Really fast again to the next phase. He's just going to go straight into it. There's no messing around. He doesn't even get to look at the group. He does one breath and turns away and has to pick up the next one. It's a really fast fight. And all you have to do is know your mechanics and keep up your buffs and debuffs. That sounds simpler than it is. But for a lot of you out there, especially the experienced players, this will not be a problem. Again, I think there's going to be some adjustments for this, because I do feel like, although it's very, very powerful and you do have to maintain this, you mustn't die or crouch, I think the negative effects are not strong enough at the moment. There are some fights where you probably won't get any use out of it at all. You might get 1 or 2 stacks. However, that's still a lot. We were finding in the beginning of dungeons, on first bosses especially, you normally stack up to about 5 to 7 stacks of Thrassian Strangler. That's 7 stacks of 150 is still 1,050 spell damage. That's nothing to sneeze at. You get 600 from Sororia alone. You put Sororia and 7 stacks together, you're laughing. That's a lot of damage. I think the bonus to damage versus the amount that you take is still not quite there, but it is a hell of a lot of fun redoing older content that you're very familiar with, that you can basically do in your sleep, but you have to pay a little bit more attention, and for doing so you can hit a lot harder. Now, these ad pulls essentially are ridiculous. Keep your buffs up. Make sure you don't die, and it's literally just wall, heavy attack, and the spell damage does the rest. If you do find that you're in trouble, put on a damage shield. It's very, very straightforward. You don't have to throw out loads of flashy rotations to do your damage now. You can just put down the basics and keep all of your sustain or resources, if you like, for the big stuff. This particular area here gets a little bit mental. There's a mini-boss coming up. He can be a pain. I've seen people wipe on him occasionally. Most people can nuke him within a reasonable amount of time and not really struggle with him, and sometimes not even see an ad. As long as they interrupt, it's not too much of an issue. But we are about to wipe the floor with him because we've all got 20 stacks. None of us have died yet. We've got our vampire abilities ready, and we've all got Destro ultis. So this dude dies rapidly. Dot, dot, heavy, and then stick your mines on, and it's pretty much over. This is very, very fast. You can get quite close to this on live, but the burst potential is absolutely insane. He's done 1 AoE and he's dead. Now, that pretty much reflects the same for the next boss, which obviously will speed up. Now, if you're familiar with City of Ash 2, you know full well that it's full of fire, so we should be taking a lot of extra damage. 40% from Thrassian. We do have horrible negative effects towards fire because we're stage 3 vampire. It's quite harsh. It's not a problem. We're not really struggling at all. Now, when we get onto the last boss, of course, we are going to hit the hard mode. Now, we were trying to be extra careful because we were going to get hit quite hard. But you'll see that even while we're trying to stay relatively focused at the same time as being kind of glass cannons, it's still not that bad. We found most of the time, as long as you've got damage shields from the tank or protection buff from somebody else, you're pretty much fine. And if not, if you're out on your own, just don't stand in stupid for too long. It's not as painful as you might think. Now, obviously, newer players are going to struggle with it, but it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for everyone anyway, so the risk for reward is there. Now, a few things do go wrong with this fight. We do actually get hit by fireballs, we get stuck in lava, we get thrown around, just like you would normally on a regular Vet Hard Mode City of Ash pledge. So, we're going to play this, although trying to be a little more careful, not really any different to how we usually would. We've got our 20 stacks, we've got a vampire ability that we toggle on or off when we need to, and we're just going to go for the nuke. So, here we go. Now, we could have stacked him on the platform to start with and just ran in, but we didn't. So, basically, as soon as you taunt Valken Scoria, he is going to throw a fireball at one random person, so we all dodged that nicely. Now, he's going to put fire on the ground, which we know is coming. That's going to hurt a vampire. We do all get caught by a little bit of that. Not too dangerous, but a little bit. Mike then takes a heavy attack, flies across the room, and doesn't actually die, so that wasn't a problem either. And we're pretty much standing in stupid for the most part, trying to weave in and out a little bit and be careful with sustain because it hurts, but it's really not that bad. The healers won't be able to heal us anyway. All of our heals are coming from self-heals. This is just crit surge keeping us alive, and every class or potential build has a way to do this, whether it be a skill morph, an actual heal, or just something that is crazily broken like crit surge. Now, technically, if we'd have jumped him on the first pad, we could have one-padded him, but we didn't do that, so we'd just finish him off on here. As you can see, it's really not that much more difficult than it is normally. Yes, we take more damage, but we got it covered. So that was really, really fun. Now, we did try a few other places. Obviously, we went into some harder content, and here are some quick clips of us doing some stupid shit with some cheesy Skyrim music. Why not?